In the last video, you saw how guards used in functions can be pretty nice. Guards allow you to control when a function clause gets invoked based on the arguments that's passed to the function. Let me ask you this. Can you see any potential problems with guards? So what if I put a function right here that talked to a database and returned a Boolean value? Would that be okay? Or what if I used a function here that calls an API and returns a Boolean value? Do you see any problem with that? Heck yeah, there's a problem. If you were allowed to put any old function call here, it could significantly affect performance, even before the function gets called, and there are plenty of other bad things that could happen. So for performance reasons, guards are limited in what expressions are allowed. Okay, so what can you put here in the guard? Well, the acceptable guard expressions are comparisons, the strict Boolean operators, basic arithmetic, the in and not in operators, the type check functions, and a handful of other functions that work on Elixir's built-in types. So how do you know for certain if you can or can't use a function in a guard? One rule of thumb is, if the function you'd like to use is in any module outside of the kernel module, you won't be able to use it. Does that mean if it is in the kernel module, you can use it? Well, no, I'm not saying everything in the kernel module can be used in guards, because that's not true. There are things in the kernel module you can't use in guards, but a good number of the functions in the kernel module work with guards. And if you're not sure if a function is allowed as a guard, you can check the help docs for the kernel function, and it'll tell you if you can use it in a guard. And even if you do try to put something in a guard that's not allowed, the compiler will help you out and let you know what you're doing wrong. Now, there's a small gotcha that you should be aware of with guards. Take a look at this hash password function. It has a guard where it checks if the length of the password is at least 8 characters long, and if it is, it'll return a hashed password, otherwise it'll return a 2-element error tuple. So do you see any problems with the hash password function? At first glance, this function probably looks okay to a lot of people. But let me ask you this. What data type would you expect the password parameter to be? Probably a string, right? Okay, but the length function doesn't work on strings, it works on lists. If you call the length function on a string, you'll typically get an error thrown, but that's not what happens in guards. If a guard throws an error, the guard will simply fail, essentially swallowing the error, and in this example, the next function clause would get called. Basically, the first function clause here would never actually work, but it would compile. So as you can see, you'll need to pay close attention to how you implement guards. Okay, that's enough about guards for now. In the next video, we'll look at an Elixir language feature called sigils.